It's time for Fresh Oil with singer-songwriter and pastor Keith Manley, a program designed to minister the gospel of God's grace and to bring fresh oil to the brokenhearted. And now, with today's program, Pastor Keith Manley.
Welcome to Fresh Oil. I'm Keith Manley. This is the final program in our series, The Men Who Walked Behind the Famous. We have walked this week with men who understood something that our culture has largely forgotten. That faithfulness in the second chair is not a consolation prize for people who weren't quite good enough for the first. That the man who holds the arms, who speaks the vision, who goes to find the obscured talent in Tarsus, who pours water on the master's hands, that man is doing kingdom work of the highest order. That God sees the second chair as clearly and honors it as fully as he sees and honors the first. Aaron, Caleb, Barnabas, Elisha. Each of them walked in the shadow of someone more visible. Each of them chose the second chair or accepted it and inhabited it with a faithfulness that shaped history in ways that are still being felt. Today we close with the man I have saved for last, because his story is in some ways the most costly of all. Not because he was overlooked or displaced or walked someone else's wilderness or poured water on someone else's hands, but because the second chair role he occupied was a position he chose deliberately, consciously, at enormous personal cost over a throne that was by every legitimate measure his to claim. His name is Jonathan, son of Saul, crown prince of Israel, the greatest warrior of his generation, and the man who gave David the throne. Let me tell you who Jonathan is before we look at his relationship with David, because the second chair choice he makes can only be fully understood against the backdrop of who he was and what he was entitled to. Jonathan is Saul's firstborn son. In the monarchical system of ancient Israel, in which the throne passed from father to son, Jonathan is the crown prince, the heir apparent, the person who will, under normal circumstances, be the next king of Israel when his father dies. That is not a minor entitlement. That is the most powerful position available to a human being in the political structure of his world. And Jonathan has earned his position beyond the accident of his birth. He is one of the most capable military leaders of his generation. 1 Samuel 14, Jonathan and his armor-bearer alone attack a Philistine garrison. Just the two of them. They climb up on their hands and feet to reach the garrison, and they kill 20 men. And God sends an earthquake, and the Philistine army begins to rout itself in confusion. Jonathan's audacious, faith-driven military action triggers a rout that delivers all of Israel. He is brave, he is brilliant, he is beloved, he is the crown prince, he is everything a king's son is supposed to be. And then David kills Goliath, and everything changes. 1 Samuel 18, 1-4, the most famous covenant of friendship in the Old Testament. As soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword and his bow and his belt, his robe, his armor, his sword, his bow, his belt. I want you to understand what Jonathan gives David in this moment. In the ancient Near Eastern context, the robe of the crown prince is not simply a piece of clothing. It is the symbolic representation of his royal status. When Jonathan strips off his robe and places it on David, he is performing, in the language of ancient covenant, an act of investiture. He is symbolically transferring his royal identity to the shepherd from Bethlehem. He is giving David his throne in symbol on the first day of their friendship. Before David has done anything to position himself for kingship, before Saul has become an enemy, before anyone in Israel knows what is coming, Jonathan knows. Somehow, in the knitting of souls that 1 Samuel 18 describes, Jonathan understands that David is the man God has chosen to be king. And on the basis of that understanding, he takes off his robe. He hands over the crown. He divests himself of the primary position and places it on the man who is going to occupy it. That is the most audacious act of second-chair humility in the entire Old Testament. And it happens on day one, and then the years of complexity. Saul grows increasingly unstable and increasingly hostile toward David. The people love David. The women sing, "Saul has killed his thousands, and David his 10,000s." And Saul's rage intensifies. And David is in genuine danger. And Jonathan again and again chooses David over his father, over his political security, over his own future as heir to the throne. 1 Samuel 19, 1-7. Saul tells Jonathan and all his servants to kill David. And Jonathan, instead of complying, instead of using the moment to remove the rival who threatens his own succession, goes to David immediately and warns him. "My father Saul seeks to kill you. Therefore be on guard in the morning. Stay in a secret place and hide yourself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are. And I will speak to my father about you. And if I learn anything, I will tell you." He positions himself between his father and David. He intercedes. He argues David's case to Saul with the evidence of David's loyalty and military service. And Saul listens for a time and swears that David will not be killed. Jonathan has used his relational access to his father, the only access available, in service of the man he has given his robe to. He is, in the most literal sense, using his position as the son of the king to protect the man who is going to take the throne from his own family. And then 1 Samuel 20. The scene that I find the most emotionally and theologically searching in Jonathan's entire story. David and Jonathan meet in a field, and Jonathan makes a covenant again. And then the arrows are shot. The signal is given. Saul's intentions toward David are murderous and clear, and David must flee. And they meet one last time in the field. Verse 41. And as soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, because we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring forever." David bowing to Jonathan, Jonathan speaking the covenant over their children, and David weeping the most. David understood what the friendship had cost Jonathan. David understood perhaps better than any person living what it meant for a man of Jonathan's gifts and lineage and entitlement to have made the choices Jonathan made. David wept the most because David knew what he had received. And Jonathan spoke the covenant over their children because Jonathan understood that the second chair choice he had made, the robe, the armor, the intercessions, the warnings, the arrows in the field, the final farewell, was not simply about himself and David. It was about generations. He was planting faithfulness in a covenant that would outlast him. And then, 1 Samuel 23:16-18, the last recorded meeting between Jonathan and David. David is hiding in the wilderness of Ziph, fleeing Saul. The situation is desperate and the isolation is real. And Jonathan comes to him. Verse 16, and Jonathan, Saul's son, rose and went to David at Horesh and strengthened his hand in God. Jonathan went into the wilderness to find David at his lowest point. He went to strengthen his hand in God, to remind the future king in the wilderness where it was hardest to believe that the calling was still real, that God had not changed his mind about who was going to sit on the throne of Israel. And then verse 17, Jonathan says, do not fear, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you. Saul my father also knows this. You shall be king, and I shall be next to you. I shall be next to you. That sentence is the fullest expression of Jonathan's second chair theology in the entire narrative. Not, I will be your competitor. Not, I will maintain my claim and we will sort out the succession when the time comes. Not, I will support you until a better option for myself emerges. I shall be next to you. He speaks his own future accurately. In his vision of what is coming, he does not place himself on the throne. He places himself beside the man who will be on the throne. He has fully inhabited the second chair identity, not reluctantly, not under compulsion, but as the deliberate expression of a love and a covenant and a spiritual clarity about who God has chosen. They make the covenant before the Lord, and Jonathan goes home, and he dies at Jezreel with his father Saul in the battle against the Philistines. And David weeps over him. 2 Samuel 1, with one of the most magnificent expressions of grief in the Old Testament. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. Jonathan never sat on the throne he was born to occupy. And David, when he finally came to his throne, honored the covenant Jonathan had made, 2 Samuel 9, by seeking out Jonathan's son Mephibosheth and restoring to him everything that Saul's house had possessed and bringing him to eat at the king's table for the rest of his life. The second chairman's children ate at the king's table. Jonathan was next to David even after he was gone. Walking Grace, God loves you.
Thanks for joining us today for Fresh Oil with Pastor Keith Manley. Fresh Oil is an outreach of Grace Family Church in Rockford, Illinois, and can be heard each weekday at this same time. You can reach us online at weneedgod.com. Until next time, remember, God's love for you is unconditional, and He makes His mercies new every morning.